Sega Sports. If you were a Genesis fan in the 1990s, chances are that name brings up a lot of memories. Sega Sports was an important part of Sega's North American success story, and things wouldn't have been the same without it. Whether it was the NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, boxing, or anything in between, Sega Sports accounted for dozens of releases over the life of the platform. But things utterly fell apart in the early days of the Sega Saturn. Sega had not properly prepared its transition to the 32-bit era, and 1995 came and went without the strong lineup Sega fans had been accustomed to for years. The biggest what the hell had to be the lack of a Sega-published NFL title. With Electronic Arts skipping a 32-bit Madden in 1995, the first NFL game on the Saturn was released in January of 1996, Acclaim's anemic Quarterback Club 96. The lone bright spot for Sega Sports in those early days was World Series Baseball, which, surprise, was developed by Sega in Japan. By the time Sega did start to get some real quality going in other areas, the Saturn was practically dead in North America. Sega Sports had gone from a brand followed by millions to something no one cared about. But in 1999, Sega got its act together for the coming release of the Dreamcast in North America. Studios were bought, games were put into production, and Sega Sports would be resurrected into a bigger and better series of games. Leading off this new direction was NFL 2K, a move that proved that Sega's new North American management was fully aware of what had gone wrong with the Saturn. Sega and sports went together like chocolate and peanut butter, so the Dreamcast was going to be absolutely stacked with options. In this episode, we will go over the history of the NFL 2K series, look at its retail run, and how it all came to an unceremonious end. I hope you guys enjoy the Sega Sports NFL 2K series, a Dynasty cut short. The 2K journey begins with a company called Visual Concepts, a fledgling software developer that was creating computer games in the late 1980s. They quickly transitioned to making console games for the various Nintendo platforms on the market in the early 1990s. They were responsible for stuff like Spot on the Game Boy and Clay Fighter on the Super Nintendo. In 1992, they entered into a partnership with Electronic Arts that saw them develop a number of titles for the Game Boy and Super Nintendo. It was during this time that Visual Concepts did Bill Walsh College Football, Madden NFL 94 and 95, as well as NHL 95 and MLB PA Baseball. It wasn't long before Visual Concepts began work on Sega Genesis titles, both for Electronic Arts and other publishers as well. They handled Weapon Lord, a violent weapons-based fighting game, and Tough Man Contest, a boxing title featuring the popular fighter Butterbean. As the 32-bit generation began, they hit a major stumbling block with Madden NFL 96, failing to produce a finished game in time for that season, which is why Electronic Arts didn't have a Madden for the Saturn or PlayStation in 1995. Visual Concepts bounced back quickly the following year and created NHL 97 for the PlayStation and Saturn. This in turn motivated Sega to work with them directly, producing NBA Action 98 in 1997 as well. This would be published by Sega for the Saturn, but it was also on the PlayStation as NBA Fast Break 98 courtesy of Midway. It didn't take Sega long to realize that it needed a dedicated and experienced developer to helm its new Sega Sports offerings for its upcoming Dreamcast, mainly because Electronic Arts had decided not to support the device unless Sega bowed out of the sports market. As Visual Concepts began work on Dreamcast games, Sega made the moves to wholly acquire them in early 1999. In an instant, Visual Concepts was put in charge of one of the most successful and storied sports brandings outside of Electronic Arts itself, and the first shots were about to be fired in a war for the hearts and minds of sports fans across the country. As the countdown to 9/9/99 raced on, Visual Concepts began to promote the fruits of its labors in gaming magazines, and good night did the previews of NFL 2K look amazing. Just seeing the images of NFL 2K made it clear that it would be a major step forward for sports games visually, and a clear indication the Dreamcast could paint one hell of a pretty picture. Visual Concepts brought in the company House of Moves for motion capture, which made you realize that not only was it pretty, but it likely was going to move great as well. And when the Dreamcast hit in North America at launch, NFL 2K was the reason I purchased a US system despite owning a Japanese model. The blurry images found in the magazines at the time had looked incredible, but they did no justice whatsoever to the final product. NFL 2K was stunning for a game released in 1999. It was pretty enough on your television with composite cables, but once you attached the VGA box, it was drop dead gorgeous. It was razor sharp, had every NFL stadium in all their glory, and kept most of the specific player details. If a player was known for a piece of gear, it was there. The metagame was also well repped here. You could control your team during a full season, following the stats, getting the best players, and creating your own plays. It supported 4 players, and you could use a VMU to call the plays. Gameplay was solid, but leaned more towards a fast and smooth arcade style than a hardcore sim. That was mainly because the AI was a bit soft, especially in the underneath passing game, where quick outs, curls, and screens succeeded far more than they failed. But no matter what, the overall consensus was that for a first effort in a brand new series, NFL 2K was a massive success. Even the harshest magazine review acknowledged Sega's return to form after the disastrous Saturn years, and the stage was set for more greatness to come.
It'll be a 30-yard attempt, which, Peter, I think would be pretty easy for him to make. It's away. And he sliced it right. The 49ers send in their offense.
Visual Concepts used the off-season to focus on the things to make their new series even better. In September of 2000, NFL 2K1 burst onto the Sega Dreamcast and promised to put the previous title to shame. The motion-captured players were back with even more animations. Franchise mode gave you even more to look after while building your team. You have to scout rookies, deal with retiring players, and build your team and playbooks so they complement one another. The running game here has also been amped up to be as fast and as fun as the passing game. You have your normal stiff arms and jukes, but now you have instant energy, which charges those special moves and turns them into super moves, or more potent versions of them. Be careful though, overuse of the instant energy meter will result in your player fumbling the ball at the most inopportune time. Without a doubt, the biggest new feature was the addition of online multiplayer. Up to 8 players can go against one another in what was the first console NFL game to feature that many online players. Again, the media absolutely loved this one and noted its many new features. It really didn't matter if it was a US-based magazine or something from a country you typically didn't think of as NFL fans. The message was clear. Sega's new series was here to stay, and the competition was put on full notice.
And the defense has to be pretty happy on this first drive of the game.
Absolutely nice play all around, and we'll more than likely see the punting unit come on the field now.
The following year was bittersweet for Sega Sports. While the Dreamcast would receive NFL 2K2 in September of 2001, it would come after the death of the console earlier in the year. No matter how good the game may be, it would be the last for a Sega-made console. NFL 2K2 also faced incredible competition that year. The PlayStation 2 and Xbox versions of Madden 2002 not only played great, but they both looked like $1 million. NFL 2K2 on the Dreamcast was rocking what seemed like the same engine from the previous games, so it looked starkly angular next to the prettier curves of Madden. NFL 2K2 on the Dreamcast also lacked any meaningful additions to get excited about. It was largely the same game as the year before, outside of a few tweaks to the AI for improved defense and some new running moves to better navigate holes in the defense. This was still an outstanding game of NFL football, but the truth was Sega was moving on to other consoles, and that was reflected here. A few months later, both the PlayStation 2 and Xbox got ports of this game, and aside from the VGA clarity of the Dreamcast original, both of those look significantly better with higher polygon players and more on-field detail. This year of transition for Sega had been rough overall. While still a respectable showing, most of the media had handed Madden 2002 the crown as the best NFL game available that year. Visual Concepts had their work cut out for them if they wanted to regain that title.
The 45, 40, the 30, the 20, the 10, touchdown!
Plays the defense here like Eric Clapton plays the guitar. Watch this. He delivers a great run and gets a touchdown thanks to that sweet juke move.
Now I've always said, Peter, brains over beauty any day of the week. That's true, I just made it up.
In August of 2002, NFL 2K3 landed on the PlayStation 2, GameCube, and Xbox consoles. It was the first year the franchise was not on a Sega console in any form. Visual Concepts, under extreme pressure from the Madden series, needed something to really set the game apart. The first big addition to 2K3 was the ESPN presentation. This now looks and sounds just like a sports program you'd see on that network, right down to the personalities associated with it. It definitely spiced up the look and feel of things and was a welcome addition. The gameplay gives us hot routes this year, which takes a vanilla play and adds different routes for the receiver to take. Think of it as an expanded take on audibles, but with a lot more flexibility. You can also use the hot defense, which lets you move around players to shore up areas you think the offense are about to strike. There's also new moves, new animations, and an expanded franchise mode. There's almost too much to list in a simple summary like this. The fact is that Visual Concepts had taken Madden's challenge seriously and built upon the Dreamcast games to give us something profoundly special. It wasn't just a competitor to Electronic Arts' long-standing series, but an alternative that looked, sounded, and played different enough that many fans actually considered buying it instead. And that's no small thing. Madden had ruled the roost for so long and had done away with so many upstarts, it was refreshing to see Sega hang in there and better their product at this level. 2K3 had put the series back on track, and I was anticipating another stellar follow-up in the coming year.
The second quarter. It's up. It's no good. The ball falls shy of the crossbar.
2003 would mark a huge change for the series. When it released on the PlayStation and Xbox in September, Sega decided to call it ESPN NFL Football, which was a mistake in my opinion, especially if you just saw it in a magazine where the 2K4 wasn't emphasized. Thankfully, the game itself was another real step in the right direction. This year we got a new first-person mode that was a great time waster, an ESPN presentation that doubled down on the stat overlays, replays, and on-air personalities, as well as new charge moves, new tackles, new catch animations, new offensive blocking schemes, and a crib where you can unlock trophies, mini games like air hockey, and even rip music to play it on your jukebox if you own an Xbox. Visual Concepts had taken 2K3 and continued to expand upon its winning formula. It was deeper, prettier, and there was a lot more to do than ever before. But it was clear this piece of the puzzle was only the beginning of the changes that were in store for us.
Hurst carries it for the 9th time and gets down for the score.
Man, this is a nice little run. A good job of slicing through the meat and picking up the yards that he needed. I love this.
Sega released the PlayStation 2 and Xbox versions of ESPN NFL 2K5 in July of 2004, a surprisingly early release date with an even more surprising retail price of just $19.99. This year we kept the best editions from the year before, while gaining the VIP system, or Virtual Identity Profile. This was an AI-based routine where it would watch you play and build a profile from your strategies. You could then save those profiles and play against them without the person actually being there. 2K5 also had Maximum Tackle, a new way to control your defender. Instead of just automatically letting the game decide your animations at the time of the hit, you could decide yourself how you were going to tackle. You could wrap up the legs of a particularly fast ball carrier, or you could pop a receiver crossing the field to make him pay for entering your territory. The ESPN presentation was the best it had ever looked, and the gameplay itself was 6 games worth of evolution that was just about perfect. Unknown to the gaming public at large, Electronic Arts and the NFL had signed an exclusivity deal earlier in 2004 that gave exclusive rights to the league and its players for 5 years. Electronic Arts paid upwards of $300 million for this contract, a direct result of Sega's constant barrage of competition that had eaten heavily into their bottom line. Sega had been selling millions of units of software every year since going multi-platform, and Electronic Arts didn't much care for that. Once it was officially announced that Electronic Arts and the NFL had partnered for this deal, the ESPN NFL 2K series was done. 2K5 would be the very last one.
Green sacks him way back at the 26.
The legacy of the Sega Sports NFL 2K series is both one of triumph and one of utter disappointment. Sega had dropped the ball so fantastically with NFL games during the Saturn's run, it was hard to believe it could ever turn things around. Yet that's exactly what happened. Once Visual Concepts took the helm, we got a lineup of games that couldn't have been much better. Each game improved and added new features year to year, turning around everything that had been wrong on Saturn. Visual Concepts' experience and dedication also gave way to other sports that would benefit the Sega brand. NBA 2K and World Series Baseball 2K would also be under their care, as were college-level sports using the NCAA license. But life proves to be unfair at the best of times, and the EA juggernaut would not be denied. Once their monopoly over the NFL license was established, Sega would exit the sports video game business for good, selling Visual Concepts and all of its related IPs to Take-Two Interactive in early 2005. I can honestly say that I missed the time when there was such healthy competition among NFL football titles. We saw genuine advancement, and Sega was as hungry as they had been during the Genesis days to make their products the best they could be. Electronic Arts chose to deal with that hunger by not creating a product that was better, but by buying their way to the top and pushing out their adversaries. While our story has a terrible ending, the legacy of Sega Sports and the NFL 2K series will never be forgotten. That great era of competition was supplanted by a 20-year run of nearly the same game every year from the same company, a sad state that shows no signs of letting up. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.